All right, everyone, just after 1 o'clock, and before we get over to the radar and take a closer look at things about what's coming our way, I wanted to start by getting us a look outside. So I got my jacket on, got the hat. We've got wonderful people that are working with us through the overnight. Brandon in the production booth. So we're going to switch things over. We'll come back and take a look at all this here in just a moment. So let me get my hat on and everything. Got to mute my microphone here in studio and then go over to actual TVU. All right. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, I can hear myself too. All right, Brandon, you can switch over to me here. Okay. We're going to head outside and we'll take a look at what's going on. All right. Nothing like actually seeing the ground truth on what's going on. All right, so here we are, 1 a.m. and we are definitely still seeing just some light precipitation that's coming down. Look at these elevated surfaces. This is going to be some of the primary problems. You can notice some of these icicles here. Yeah, that's going to play a bigger role. And that's why we're seeing some of our bridges and overpasses freeze over fairly quickly. Now, at this point on the ground level, things are just fine. We are not seeing any sort of, I guess, icing on the ground level here, at least from where we are at the Tyler Loop near Broadway at this point. But the case can be made that for other areas, we will probably see some additional impacts as we go into the next couple of hours for this morning. It definitely is cold out here, so as you prepare for your Thursday morning, you will want to dress in layers. The wind out of the northeast really taking a bite. I am facing now the northeast wind, and it is hitting me, plus some of this precipitation that is coming down. Now, this precipitation that we've seen really has been on the light side. There has been some spurts of some moderate to heavier precipitation that has come through. But the freezing rain threat is probably going to pick up as we get closer to maybe 2. Well, 2 is probably a little too early, but 3 to 5 a.m. we'll probably see that increase, especially back toward the Metroplex. But this is where we're going to probably see some of the eventual problems. Let me show you another elevated surface. We're right outside the station. We're kind of in our back area where we keep all of our cars. You'll probably notice this too. Your patios, some of your walkways, elevated surfaces, this is all ice. This is all ice. Now, the actual ground here, at least for us, is just all liquid. No big concern, but we've also put some salt down on this area too. So I think over the next little bit, we're going to probably see the conditions go down, especially off to the west. Van Zandt County, definitely concerned for you. Henderson County, Hopkins, Rains County, even for Wood County as well. I think we could have some impact issues as we get closer to daybreak here on this Thursday. But I did want to come outside and just kind of give you a general look. It's cold. The temperature feels like the 20s. And the wind just hits you, especially when you're talking about precipitation coming in too. It hits you and just makes you want to go back inside. So you know what? That's exactly what we're going to do. It was nice to come out here just for a moment. Just wanted to give a different perspective. You know, it's one thing to actually have to deal with or to be in studio and at the weather wall, but it's another thing to actually go outside and see what's going on. So I'm thankful to be back in the heat. We've got some wonderful people here. There's Miss Cynthia. She does our digital. Hi, Cynthia. And our 5 o'clock producer, morning producer for KTK today. Hi, Hannah. Good morning. All right. I'm going to have to turn this off. And Brandon, we'll go back to the weather wall. All right. Here we are. I'll come on back in. Let me take off my jacket here and I'll come back over. You know, that was fun. I actually enjoyed doing that. Can we do weather like that, Brandon? I don't know if we could do that. That may be a little too much.
I said, can we do weather like that where we start out going out and then we come back in? I don't know. We have to see what everybody else thinks about it. All right, back in studio. Okay, let's give you a look at the big picture on things. We'll just kind of walk you through what we're seeing here at this point. No big change compared to when we talked in the midnight hour. But what we're watching for is this area of cloud cover, which you'll notice here on the infrared satellite imagery showing the cooling of the cloud tops. When cloud tops cool, that usually leads to an increased chance of precipitation. If we were talking about thunderstorms, if cloud tops were cooling, that means the storms will be maturing a bit more and likely still able to hold themselves together to move in. That's what we're seeing here. Now, we're not seeing areas of orange, excuse me, orange and red like what they've seen across portions of the deep south going back into Little Rock and southwest Arkansas. These are more convective, heavier bands of freezing rain and sleet that have moved through there. This is mostly on the light side. That's why we're mainly looking at light areas of freezing rain, but it'll be enough to cause some problems as we get into the early morning hours closer to sunrise. Right now, temperatures across the state, you'll notice we're sitting at 24 DFW, down to 30 in San Antonio. That freezing line goes all the way down, even close to the Victoria area, 35 right now in Corpus Christi. Amarillo at a temperature of 15, Houston at 40. And notice here how the Ouachita Mountains are preventing the colder air from moving in. Typically, it's a process that we see over in the Appalachian Mountains called cold air damming. But that's just not that's also technically happening here too, where we don't have that freezing line and that true colder air going below freezing moving all the way through. That's why we're stuck in some areas sitting into the lower in the mid 30s. Here's a closer look for us here at home. Terrell, DFW, 24. We've got 28 in Mineola, 32 in Mount Pleasant, 32 also in Jacksonville, 37 in Center. We're all dealing with the cloudy skies and some light precipitation. I just want to check something real quick. I'm going to step off screen, but I think it's really interesting to note that we have not seen these temperatures change much at all. For example, let me pull up Tyler Pound's information here. And so for Tyler Pounds, we've fluctuated between from in the 7 o'clock hour we dropped down to 29, but ever since then we have held either at 30, 31, 32, or even 33 degrees. Okay, so that temperature just continues just to hold right at that freezing mark. We've got to get it colder for us to start to see perhaps some freezing rain. Mineola, for example, we just showed you Mineola there at 28. The Wood County Airport has held at 28 since 9:30. I take that back. Correction. Since 10:35, it is held at 28 degrees. So we are looking at, we're going close into 3 hours that we've held at 28 there. And so that certainly is a trend. Athens, I can check that too. Athens has been up to 32s at 10 o'clock and just now coming back down to 30 at the 12:55 update. And then Sulfur Springs, and I'll come back over to the key wall. Sulfur Springs has continued to cool. We've been at 29 starting at 6 o'clock. We dropped to 28 at 7:15, dropped to 27 at 7:55, and at 10:15 we went back to 28 and now back down to 27 and now 26 with this 1 o'clock observation. So you can definitely see that the temperatures just continue to hold steady, and we're not going to see much of a change. There's not a true bigger push of colder air. If we had a big strong high pressure that was coming in, that would probably help lead that temperature to cool down, but because of the clouds and the temperature close to the dew point, that's why we're looking at some of this precipitation to move through. There's the wind out of the northeast, and hard to believe it was only a wind outside about 5 to 10 miles an hour, but it only takes that much for us to see a bigger wind chill. That's why it feels like the 20s, even feels like the low 20s and the teens off to the northwest, but essentially everybody with a wind chill near freezing down in sections of deep East Texas, Texas, and I'm glad we're not talking about a wind chill of 14 that is back into the Metroplex. Here's a check of the radar for us. Again, we've had some precipitation that has moved through our northeast areas, and that has begun to pull away. That's back in portions of the Arklatex area and now moving over into southwest Arkansas. What you'll notice here is that the radar is having a difficult time picking up on some of the areas of very light precipitation because that cloud deck is so low. Radar shoots higher up into the clouds and is able to detect some of this precipitation. That's why this is probably more so of sleet and maybe some freezing rain mixture there, especially once it gets farther north of Texarkana, where some of that colder air will continue to funnel on in, thus leading to some of the wintry precipitation and freezing rain that they have seen. So all of that is going to continue to move off to the north and to the northeast there. There you can notice the path that it's taking. This is also where we're seeing some of the thunderstorm development. Notice how the lightning strikes really begin to pick up. It's a little bit hard to see. We have the lightning turned very low. There you can notice there's the heavier band just coming out of the Hope area. Watch the loop here, this purple that pops up, and then there's lightning strikes there. That is most likely some thunder sleet or a thunderstorm producing some heavier precipitation rates as that comes down. We don't have that in East Texas here at this point. Otherwise, things are fairly okay. Still some light freezing mist and drizzle. I want to take you back down to the southwest. This is the area that we'll continue to watch for. Again, it's light precipitation, but it should begin to increase as we get closer to about 4 to 6 a.m. in East Texas. Visibilities, yeah, they're low for a lot of spots. That's just an indication that we continue to have this fine mist, fine drizzle that is falling from the sky, and the radar just has a difficult time seeing that. Look at the upper level map here. We're tracking what's called vorticity, that's spin in the atmosphere or energy. Areas of yellow, orange, and red, that's where we're starting to see the spin, and as that picks up, what that will lead to is increased chances of precipitation near there and farther downstream. That's why we're still continuing with at least some light precipitation. And then tomorrow night, once this energy begins to pull away, or Thursday night into Friday morning, I should say, we'll finally catch a break and some drier air will move in. It's only for a short period of time before more precipitation picks up as we head into our Friday afternoon going into Saturday. So here's Futurecast for us. This is the same model that I've shown you here this evening, starting in the 9 o'clock news on Fox 51. Went back over to our in-house model, the same one you would find on our Storm Team app. Notice as we get closer to 3 a.m., we'll see the transition begin to increase. The radar may not necessarily look like this, showing that we have an extensive coverage of this precipitation, but it does show us that we are going to see an increased coverage of the precipitation, rain and freezing rain to increase area-wide across East Texas. The reason why? Because we were just showing you that upper level energy that is spreading. That helps lift the moisture up into the sky, helping to generate this precipitation to move in. And then it's cold enough at the surface for that rain to change over to freezing rain. So this is likely how things may play out as we get to KETK Today time around 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Areas to the west is probably where we're going to have some of the bigger problems, as we've alluded to over the last several days. There's 7 a.m. Notice how that freezing line is so close, where we're starting to see perhaps that rain changing over. As a matter of fact, this is the newest run that we just got in. So we get 4 runs a day on this particular model. This is what we call the 0Z run. It was initiated at 6 o'clock on Wednesday evening. So this new run actually brings back the freezing line a little bit more to the east. If you've been keeping an eye on this line, it's actually a little bit more eastward than compared to where it was around 7 a.m. It was probably in between the T and the L of Tyler and back off to the west, and even just west of Mount Pleasant and Gilmer toward west of Highway 271. So that has backed its way to the east here just a tad. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Again, this is a forecast model, not necessarily the complete 100% truth. It gives us an idea on what could come our way and how things may play out. But areas for sure northwest of Tyler, west of Tyler, all the way up into Hopkins and Rains counties, that's where we're probably looking at some of the bigger threat that will move in. There's 11 a.m. Still looking at that precipitation in our west and northwest counties. I know we have a host of schools that are on delays, perhaps starting as early as 9 or 10 a.m. in some of these locations. If we still have this ongoing and the temperatures below freezing, it's really going to be hard to get out. So we'll see how this evolves as we get into the morning hours. But if precipitation is still lingering at this point, that means you have great problems that are probably ongoing in these areas, west and northwest of the Tyler area. There's 1 o'clock, still holding on to perhaps some of the freezing rain, and then we get another round of rain to pick up, and this will probably be a rain-sleet mixture at this point as we get into the late afternoon and evening, because that temperature just barely makes it above freezing, and then that freezing line starts to move back in. That's why it could end maybe as a light wintry mix down in sections of deep East Texas. There's midnight. And notice how the rain begins to pull away. Yes, clouds decrease, and that's going to lead to a very cold start Friday morning. I've got low temperatures projected down at least into the upper 20s. But if we do see these clouds clear and not much cloud cover moves in before daybreak, mid to even some low 20s, especially in the areas that would be impacted by the potential freezing rain that the model is showing, we could have some colder temperatures move in for early Friday morning, and that just means an automatic refreeze of everything. So we still could have impacts going into Friday morning. And then as we get the warmer air to move in going into Friday, we'll start to see that freezing line lift back to the north and northwest, and eventually give us some warmer temperatures, the melting process, but also some additional precipitation projected to move in. Okay, precipitation types, and talking about areas of greatest impact in green, still not looking at too much of a concern here. We've kept this line very close to Highway 69, and last night and this morning we nudged it a little bit more to the east here, and we also brought it more down into deep East Texas, our southwest counties, where we could see perhaps a light glaze of ice there. But again, if you're along 259 and to the east, confidence is still fairly high, even though temperatures are close to freezing, that you're probably just more so going to see a rain-sleet mixture, perhaps with not much accumulation. A wintry mix still appears likely in our west areas with a light ice expected, but then in the blue, that's where we are anticipating perhaps a bigger impact there of ice that's projected to come our way. So that's something too that we'll have to keep a monitor on as we go through the next 12 hours or so as that precipitation continues to move in. So a lot of this is dependent upon us seeing the precipitation, so that's what we will specifically wait for. Closer look here at some of the impacts. Again, Lindale near I-20, Highway 69, back off to the northwest. Certainly the majority of the counties in Wood, Franklin, Hopkins, Rains, Van Zant, and Henderson County. These are the counties that are under winter weather advisories. Hopkins, Rains, and Van Zant under a winter storm warning. That's where we could see potential ice amounts perhaps approach near 1/4 inch. I want to show you road temperatures too, and really focus on the northwest areas where we are seeing those road temperatures go downhill toward morning as the precipitation moves in. So all of these models work together. What we saw on the in-house computer model can also help correlate to what's happening here on the road temperatures. And you notice as we get down into the darker blues, that's below freezing, that's where we start to see perhaps some of the impacts on the roads, not just elevated surfaces, but even perhaps more so on the actual surface roads themselves, where we could have some ice develop in those areas with this freezing rain. As we get toward 10 a.m., we showed you with Futurecast that we still had precipitation that was in the freezing rain form to the west and to the northwest, and that's why that temperature doesn't really budge a whole lot. Meanwhile, for the rest of us, we've got temperatures well above freezing, 30s, 40s, even some 60 road temperatures in deep East Texas. That doesn't mean your air temperature is going to be in the 60s. It just means the road temperature does improve to where it's all liquid on the ground there. And that trend continues up to the northwest as we go through the evening hours. So this is what we're going to continue to watch for. Again, It's areas out to the west. We're still anticipating that lift in the atmosphere to help lead to some additional bands of this precipitation that will pick up. And I know that it looks like there's not a whole lot happening out there at this point. And you're right, the radar picking up a lot of clutter, but there's probably some light freezing rain occurring in portions of central Texas. But we'll gradually see this precipitation develop a bit more with time, and we'll probably start to see more of the reports. That's why we rely on observation reports and reports from you on the ground. And I know it's hard to do that with it being the nighttime hours, but as we get closer to daybreak, you've got to at least make an attempt to get to work or get to school, and we probably will see some additional reports coming in on that. All right, thank you for taking the time to watch our updates here. I'm glad to offer you hourly updates. I think that's really important, especially if we're seeing any significant changes, which we have not seen at this point, but it's allowing us to fine-tune the forecast, help you see some of the inside baseball on how the forecast evolves and how it changes, and also get to have a little fun. That was nice to actually go outside, and it's one thing to be in studio, but it's also another thing to actually live the weather outside of the four walls here in the studio. Thanks for taking time to join us. Next plan, probably come back on around 2 o'clock with another update, and we'll get closer and closer to seeing some of this wintry weather begin to move in. All right, stay safe if you got to get out on the roads over the next little bit. Those roads are going to get a little bit dicey as we get closer to sunrise.